varnish on her mouth, lies behind glass. Museums don't sleep. They hold their breath. When the last field trip bus coughs its gum wrappers out the door and the docents fold their scarves like closing arguments, the building switches languages. Day speaks in stroller traffic and wishful questions, in audio guides whispering into plastic. Night speaks in compressors exhaling through ductwork, in hygrothermographs scratching thin lines across paper, in the disciplined blink of red LEDs that say everything is where you left it. Marble steps keep their chill. Oils warm almost imperceptibly under low lux. If you've never stood alone in a gallery at 2 in the morning and heard the canvases talk to the air, you don't know how the past keeps you honest. My name is Simon, head of night security at the Merit Museum. On my belt, a ring of keys that's more rumor than metal, a radio that calls me by my better self, a flashlight with a beam like a verdict. In the control room, I keep my small stubbornnesses. The visitor flow heat map everyone ignores, a notebook full of numbers, humidity curves, freezer logs, the way the south wall breathes after the rain. I can tell by the smell in Gallery East if a school group smuggled citrus in their pockets. I can tell by the way a motion sensor wakes if the air current learned a new trick. I know which painting sighs when the HVAC lies. Lena, my wife, then curated nights that made the board feel young. She could persuade benefactors to believe in a color. She wore a thin cuff of silver pressed to the inside of her wrist, a secret line that my mouth could follow in the dark if my credentials were current. Wednesdays, when our orbits permitted, she would badge through the staff entrance with a flinty little chirp and step into the hush like a priest who stole the temple keys. She'd climb onto the edge of my control desk, ankle crossed, heel barely kissing the metal drawer, fingers slipping into my belt under the pretext of fixing a loose thread. I'd put my mouth in the small hollow under her collarbone, where a voice collects itself before it speaks, and breathe until her shoulders change professions. We were careful. The building remembers more cleanly than people, and plexiglass keeps the lip print of a trespass like a glass keeps a kiss. Some sanctuaries, you build out of seconds between pings and badge beeps. The first sign did not shout. At 01:06, the access log flagged a curious sweetness. Gallery East, door held 3S, no corresponding swipe. At 01:09, the climate software registered a degree warmer set point in the room where we keep the Dutch masters, as if the room wanted to be a body for a minute. At 01:12, the motion sensor under the skylight woke and went back to sleep like someone turned over in an old bed. On the plex of the central vitrine, at a height that makes donors lean forward, I found a faint ring of lipstick, a red that read as peppermint in the black light, thin as a fruit drawn by a careful hand. Lena lives in fig and smoke. Peppermint belongs to a bar she doesn't need me to take her to. 2 nights later, the same minute put 2 fingers in the back of my neck. Door held 4S. The data logger in the conservation lab recorded a 10-minute override on the fume hood, someone turning the world on to make a small invisible thing behave. On the crumb-trapping runner near the big marble, a sequin burned from the tread like a small confession. Uniform policy is quiet wool. Sequins don't bloom here unless they are lost by a person who misreads our rules as a suggestion. I am not a cop. I am an attender of thresholds, but I believe in traces. In the cabinet labeled training, we keep a bottle of UV developer for outreach, gentle, bright under black light, a catechism for children who like to see their hands tell on them. That night I breathed a quiet crescent beneath the door handle of Gallery East, a second whisper under the slider that wakes the motion camera, a third along the underside of the climate controller where an eager thumb might rest. I threaded a single strand of monofilament across the staff stair door at shin height, no more than a hair that would fall to the stone and die if disturbed. Then I looked up at my reflection in the control room glass. the fisheye that tells you how small you are, and smiled the smile of a man who has already chosen which drawer he will not open. Lena came later, mouth amber, dress choosing its own attitude like a painting asserting provenance. She sipped my terrible coffee in the easy way of a person who forgives in advance for a different reason, and pressed her palm to my sternum, testing for a truth. "Your museum feels like a cathedral that learned to flirt," she said, eyes not on me but on the grainy grids of the monitor wall. "It dreams," I said. "I give it lists until it sleeps." My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not claim. Her shoulders softened the way a plan does when it stops performing and starts being real. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered, because I name things when I am afraid of them. "Open," she said. "Not chaos, not cruelty. Nobody from your team, nobody who signs my checks. We speak before, not after, protection as liturgy. We are first. Our bed is a border, the galleries," her gaze walked the dark, sanctuary. I made the worst joke about being a sacristan of glass, and her mouth absolved me without trial. We wrote a pact on our inkless skins, signed it with heat, and pretended we had invented gentleness. Morning returned my hair like a little corpse at the bottom of the stair. Under UV, 3 shy smiles glowed where human eagerness would live if the body were a map. Under the baseboard of the vitrine, an earbud tip slept among dust bunnies and the paper memory of old labels, clear, disposable, bought a dozen at a time. Lena's hairpins are black and practical. This was the brightness of an alibi. His name arrived with a publicist's apology. Jameson Reed, Art World host, shooting a behind-the-scenes after-dark segment for City Interiors, requires limited night access for ambience. He had the handshake of a man who mistakes invitation for ownership. White sneakers that pronounced creative in the marble. "It smells like old wood and new money in here," he said, trying the line like a cuff. His eyes measured our cameras, our doors, the distance from the vitrine to the wall, as if, rehearsing a crime, he would alibi with content. At home, the kettle confessed to knowing us. Lena spread her fingers on the table like a lighting plot. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I wasn't supposed to bring that into your walls. I won't again, not here." "What time?" I asked. The man who lives in logs trying to wash a stain with numbers. "It isn't the hour that cleans it," she said, and I hated the accuracy because it made me tidy before it made me brave. "We lived a month like citizens of a thin country," she told me before. I put the developer back with the things that know too much. Jameson drifted in our after hours like a borrowed breeze, videographer in tow, claiming to document breath. The building breathed easy. Our pact felt like a saint you can stand next to without being converted. Thursday remembers itself. 0106 door held. 0109 override. 0112 peppermint ring on the glass of the staff kitchen, a flute drying for no one. On the stair camera, a silhouette paused to retie a shoelace with the self-regard of a man who knows he's being recorded and prefers it. I did not strip his temporary badge in the system. I did not unscrew the camera and drop it down the stairs. I let the red dots keep poolsing and I made my rounds. I held my anger like a solvent with a warning label, and I did not spill it. After, we separated like people who had rehearsed compassion and decided to use it on purpose. Lena took a one-bedroom with a 2 Ernest ficus and a balcony that thought it was a stage. I kept my chipped mug, my radio that knows my breathing, my lists, and my stubbornness. She took the kettle that gets the song right. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me under something you don't open every day." "I have a taxonomy," I said, and for once that was the least ridiculous sentence in our kitchen. Work stitch by stitch made me whole in the way it knows. A temperature probe decided to invent drama. I reminded it of its job. A guard in training mistook deference for silence. I taught him to speak soft and firm at the same time. A late student tour tried to take a selfie too close to a marble that weighs more than their combined future. I inserted a smile and a gentle palm between history and the present moment. I slept in squares. I learned the aftertaste of a life you decide to stay inside. She arrived with a pelican case and a patience I recognized like a scent. Margot came from a specialty firm to recalibrate our gallery lighting after a donation doubled our guilt about the old dimmers. She wore her hair twisted and pinned by a translucent clip that caught the museum light and turned it into an argument in favor of keeping her. She smelled like solder that knows when to stop and like clean cotton. On her left hand, a small pale scar lay across the knuckle like a comma that had once been a question mark. We met for real at 03:19, face to face on the big A-frame ladder in Gallery East, our heads lost in the ceiling where the grid hangs low. She pressed her ear to the housing of a stubborn track head and tapped the aluminum with the back of her fingernail until it emitted a tired ballast. "Respect, not force," she told the light, which is the way she says hello to machines. "Everything that's worth keeping," I said, and held the ladder the way you hold yourself when you're trying to do something right. Our fingers grazed when I took the screwdriver back. The electricity went home. Our first kiss happened between the racks in storage, where paintings live their winter behind Tyvek and soft curses. We were there for a power test. We turned out the main and left a work light on the floor, and its glow did that slow thing to the room like a stage deciding to be generous. Margot put her palm over my sternum, not like a claim, but like a technician checking a panel for heat. I put my mouth under her ear in the secret country where a voice becomes breath first, and the world stayed upright while we leaned. She kept her eyes open, not as a dare but as gratitude. My hand found the side of her neck, greeting, not proof. We stopped before the emergency light could decide it had ethics. We laughed the laughter of people who count things for a living and didn't want to miscount this. With Margot, precision became a language the body could speak without shame. She likes when my thumb settles on the pulse inside her wrist, and I take my time like a professional. She will slide onto my lap in the tiny glass office above the receiving bay. Blind down, monitors dimmed, a forklift asleep below, turning inside a cable coil on the floor as if she had invented curves. She will draw with a fingernail on my forearm the path from fixture to dimmer to scene recall, and I will think I've never been this well diagrammed. We made our rules the building could bless. Not on a plinth, not in the galleries, not anywhere a camera could turn intimacy into evidence. Yes, in the lighting booth. Yes, in the cage where the bolts and gels live. Yes, on the roof under the skylight when the stars pretend to be ours. If you came here for revenge dressed as justice, I'll waste your evening. I could have printed logs, sent them to legal with highlighted peppermint rings. I could have whispered to a gossip blogger about a man with cameras who mistook access for an aphrodisiac. I could have taught Lena what the cameras know. But a museum is a sanctuary for other people's looking. The widow who stands an extra 20 seconds in front of a painting at 10:17 a.m. needs me to keep the air honest, not to consecrate my anger. And Margot prefers me smelling like old wood and wire discipline, not like a victory I didn't earn. Lena and I learned to speak again without making teeth out of nouns. She kept the contract to stage our winter gala, because she is excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she sends me a photo of her basil pretending to be a tree. I send her a frame from the control screen, humidity holding steady like a hand that knows how to hold. "Proud of you," she texted the night I saved a loan by fixing a misreading sensor with nothing but patience, and a call to the one engineer who tells the truth when it costs him. I let the words land. They had no claws left in them. Jameson still visits when he can borrow a suit and a camera. We passed in the staff corridor by the freight elevator. He lifted 2 fingers in a salute that had never met a uniform. "This place is sexier at night," he said, eyeing his reflection. "It keeps itself," I said. "I just keep its memory straight." He smiled the way a man smiles when he mistakes composure for surrender. He let the door close itself and walked out with the confidence of someone who never had to learn to lock anything. Nights went back to their honest. A kid vomited in the lobby after a field trip. I thanked the stone and the janitor and nobody else. A donor wanted the light to flatter a painting into the person he remembered sleeping with in the 70s. I gave him a kinder angle and kept the painting safe. A guard called in scared because a sculpture looked at him. I walked over and let the sculpture look at us both until it got bored. Sometimes I wake on the cot behind the control room at a time that refuses to count. If Margot's shin lies heavy across my thigh like the line in a score you need in order to sing, I put my hand along her throat and wait for the lift that means yes. The difference between a conclusion and a completion has a temperature. My palm knows it better than my mouth. Months after the developer went back with the truth we don't need nightly, the museum hosted a donors' night called Under Glass. I wore black because it forgives the light. Lena stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter like a decision with clean edges. "Is she gentle?" she asked, not saying Margot, because we learned to offer names without throwing them. "She's exact," I said, which is my way of nomming good tenderness with a manual. "Be kind," she said, not a benediction, a maintenance schedule. We clinked water because water keeps you honest, and the champagne was already working for others. Near the Calder, Jameson told a circle of people that museums are mirrors for our better selves. They gave him their attention like it was a tip. Let him have their indulgence. I had a key to turn, a thermostat to check, a woman who would meet me under the skylight and place her palm over my chest as if it were a panel she trusted. Museums don't do morals. They do tolerances and set points and 1,000 rituals that keep the breath steady. To the young guard who will come into my office with his eyes too bright and ask what to do with the parts of the job that never appear on a diagram, I will say what I tell myself when the building is too quiet and my pride asks for a stage. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let a gallery carry your grievance. Keep evidence if you must. Refuse the costume of judge. Remember the visitor at 10:17 a.m. who needed a place where looking didn't hurt. She will not wait for your forgiveness to keep standing in front of the painting that remembers her husband. Before dawn, I take my last round like a hymn. I run my palm along a marble plinth the way you pet an old, patient dog. "All green," I say into the radio, which is another word for my sternum. The small red lights keep their good pulse. I silence the rooms in the correct order. I turn a key. The whole profession folded into one honest click and climb to the roof. Sometimes Margot is already there, hair clip catching the first gray, smelling like clean wire and sleep. She sets her palm over my sternum as if it could glow. I put my mouth in the old place under her ear where breath convinces words to return later. I keep the only oath I took without a board vote. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I will not use a gallery for revenge. If the log coughs again at 01:06, I will see it. I will choose a drawer, the one with powder or the one where patience sleeps in its packet, folded like a map. Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on glass. It holds me upright. And when the doors open for the day and the first shoes squeak on marble like pencils starting a sentence, I go back down with varnish in my nose, Margot's hand in mine, and the quiet certainty that tonight, at the right speed, I carried the truth.